course, everyone is probably familiar with Junior and Raphael, your brothers, and all you guys are pretty well known at having really good jiu-jitsu. So, how did you guys get involved in BJJ and mixed martial arts in the first place?
Well, we all have a capoeira background. We first started training capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial art from Brazil, created by the slaves back in the 1500s. So we started on that when we first moved to the United States, which is back in '93 in Miami. That's how we started into martial arts. So we've been into martial arts since we're 11. So from there, that's when the whole transition to jiu-jitsu happened. When we moved to Atlanta, my two brothers started training jiu-jitsu first. I trained, stayed with the capoeira for a little longer, became a black belt. Then I also made a transition to jiu-jitsu. But when I made a transition to jiu-jitsu, my brothers they're already like purple belts. So they already had a couple of years in jiu-jitsu. So, but it was good because now that I train with them, it requires a lot more from me, to push myself, because I had to keep up with them. So I had to learn a lot faster than people normally do.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, training with, two family members like that, does that kind of force you to, do they put more pressure on you maybe just because they know what you're capable of and they can tell if you're slacking off or if you're not performing up to your potential?
Yes, they definitely do that. Not only for the jiu-jitsu, but for fighting. Since the beginning, since my first fight in MMA, my first pro fight, I fought a guy who had like 10 pro fights already, which is a guy who just fought in the UFC, Felipe.
Yeah, Arante.
Yeah, Arante. And so since the beginning, I already knew that it wasn't going to be easy for me because we already had a strong name because of my two brothers. It wasn't going to be an easy task for me. So it requires, there's always pressure on me, how well I'm going to do, because everyone expects me to do as well as my two brothers, which is okay. I'm fine with the pressure. I'm used to it, no biggie. I have to keep, in order for me to keep up with them, I have to train extra hard, and that's what I do. And I do keep up with them. All my training partners here, all veterans, UFC veterans, WC veterans, so it definitely has helped me,
Right. So, you mentioned Felipe Arantes, and he did just have a fight in the UFC. He came up on the short end, but still, he got that opportunity, and with the distance with the guy in a big show in Brazil, which, of course, the fans were crazy. But, for you, seeing a guy that you actually beat, getting the big shot at that stage, does that motivate you to, really take that next extra step?
Oh, it definitely does. He could have done better. He's a tough guy. He took that fight on a short notice, so that's why he didn't really perform as well as he should have. The reason why he got in, he's been fighting a lot, and I think he's fought like 8 times since we fought, and I only fought like 4. So he's been doing his homework. He's been training a lot and fighting a lot. But it definitely motivates me. I know that eventually I'm gonna get to the big show, but I'm happy. I'm satisfied with the Aggression. Aggression is good. Even though it's my first time fighting there, I heard really good things about it, and I'm excited to fight there. But yeah, the whole once I get to the big, my plan, my goal is to get to the big show too, and I know I'm gonna get there. Only the person that's gonna stop me is God. If he doesn't want.
Right. Now, and you mentioned Aggression, the promotion, and Canada really, it doesn't always get mentioned as much as maybe the United States and Brazil, but obviously there's a ton of really good talent up there. So, are you pretty confident you're going to have plenty of guys to test yourself against fighting for that promotion?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure. Fighting this guy, pretty tough guy, has more fights than I do.
Mm-hmm.
Be fighting a lot longer than I have, so it's a good test for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's other guys fighting for the title on the same night. There seems like solid guys. So yeah, I think there's definitely plenty of competition for me at Aggression. So I'm excited.
Right. Now, you mentioned your opponent, Baz Cunningham. I think he's 6-2 in his career. So you mentioned he's got a few more fights than you. Have you watched any film on him, or do your coaches take care of that? What do you know about him as far as his tendencies and what he's strong at?
Yeah, I saw a couple of videos on him. Yeah, I mean, we went over. I went over. My brothers went over a couple of videos. We should, I believe it's a good matchup. We match up well. He just looks like a strong guy. Looks like he has a good wrestling, heavy hands. Does his stuff in the ground also. I mean, even though I have a jiu-jitsu background, I don't really like, staying on my back too much.
Mm-hmm.
All my fights never really stay on my back. If we need to go there, of course, I got the tools for it. But I like to strike.
Mm-hmm.
I like to wrestle. And it's a good matchup. I mean, we went over a couple of videos on him. We already got a game plan. And it's good to go. Excited.
Right. Now, also, you mentioned, your capoeira background, and, I've seen some videos on it. I mean, it's really beautiful art to watch, and, you got to be really athletic, certainly. So, but as far as carrying over that skill into mixed martial arts, I know the striking is different, but how much of that background has kind of helped you transition to the more traditional mixed martial arts kind of Muay Thai kickboxing style? Like, how's that transition been for you?
We definitely been. It's funny because even like on my jiu-jitsu, on our jiu-jitsu game, it definitely benefits. The capoeira benefits because capoeira requires a lot of core, a lot of body balance and body movement, flexibility. So you get guys that are really good they're really flexible in their jiu-jitsu games. BJ Penn, those type of guys, they do really well. So I'm pretty flexible myself. I have, I have good balance. So it definitely has helped me. The transition, transition is not as easy as it seems. Of course, because capoeira doesn't have hand strikes, mostly kicks. So of course you have to work on your hands and the whole transition of mixing everything up. But, we have our own, like me, Junior, Raphael. I mean, we have our own, style. I mean, it's a capoeira background, which we add everything into it. But it has definitely benefited. You see guys that have a capoeira background, they do really well in MMA. Anderson Silva comes from capoeira. Jose Aldo comes from capoeira. Thiago Alves comes from capoeira. Vanderlei Silva done capoeira before. Many of those guys that are successful in their striking have a capoeira background. It's like football here in America. It's just everybody in Brazil. Most of the guys have done it some capoeira, which is. But I've taken really serious. I mean, I'm a black belt in capoeira, so it's not just I've trained capoeira for a little bit or whatever. I'm a black belt in capoeira, so I've been doing it for a long time. So yeah, I have to be very athletic, I'm very acrobatic, very flexible. I'm confident in my style.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely has benefited me.
Right. Now, there have been plenty of prospects that have come in and, maybe they had a really good jiu-jitsu background or even good jiu-jitsu and striking, but sometimes if their wrestling isn't up to snuff, especially on the larger North American circuits, they can struggle. But I mean, I watched Raphael's last fight, and he actually, he basically won that fight because of his wrestling and his takedowns and really being persistent on that. So, how have you guys done as far as, getting used to the kind of American wrestler style and just, guys who want to work the takedowns and get on top? I mean, you mentioned you don't like to work off your back too much.
Right. We train a lot of wrestling. We improving a lot on our wrestling. Have a good coach. Also train with we have a training partner, Jeff Berdar. He's a national champion. Exactly, just like you said, because there's so much wrestling in MMA now, that we have to make we had to make that transition into a lot of the wrestling game. Raphael is a beast. His wrestling is amazing. He's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he's kind of like, again, like me and Junior. We're jiu-jitsu guys, but we don't like that whole, this is a jiu-jitsu guy, he's gonna stay on his back. Our background is jiu-jitsu. Before that, our background is capoeira. We used to stay on our feet. So wherever the fight goes, it needs to matter. We train a lot. We do a lot of transitions, cross training, from wrestling to jiu-jitsu, to striking, to boxing, to Muay Thai. We definitely. We'll be doing our homework because we're not young guys, so young. I'm already 29. And there's a lot of newcomers, like you said, a lot of kids that are strong, good wrestlers. So if we don't keep it up, we can't keep up with them. So definitely, you have to do our homework on the wrestling. There's a good wrestling base here in Atlanta, so we training a lot of that.
Right.
Focusing a lot on that, on the wrestling aspect.
Mm-hmm. Now, the last question I had for you is, you mentioned that you want to get to the big show eventually, and certainly, you've already got some nice wins in your career, and you have a good background, trained with some great fighters, so you certainly seem to have the foundation there. But you also mentioned earlier, fighting guys who have more experience in time in the cage than you. So, how do you, I guess, temper, wanting to move up, but also making sure you get enough experience? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I have to make right decisions, have to make smart decisions about it. You want to go to, I know that I'm, a couple of fights away from, getting to the big shows. The experience itself, it counts a lot, but because since I have to keep up since I have to keep up with my brothers, training, and I have to be with them on the same level as they are, doing fighting, of course, experience comes a lot into it, but I just gotta be smart about it, taking smart fight. Smart fight. I'll fight anybody. Since my first MMA fight, I've never hesitated about taking any fights. I'll fight anybody. I train with anybody. I'm confident in myself. Once I get to the big, I'll probably drop weight to 135 if I get to a big, Aggression's already a good size. It's a good show. Let's say like UFC, I'll probably drop weight to 135 because I'm not a big 45er. Guys nowadays, they're 45ers out. The 45ers are now like coming down from 175, 180, 175 around that area. I only walk around about 165, so not a huge 45er. I can definitely make 135. And I think I'll be, I'll do well. I'm probably a couple of fights away, so really excited about fighting Aggression, putting the show there, fighting for the belt there, taking that belt home, and going from there.
Right, right. Well, like I said, I appreciate it. The Aggression MMA event's coming up on, I believe it's September 16th. You're fighting Baz Cunningham. I think the title's also going to be on the line. UFC veteran Alvin Robinson will be in that contest. But let me tell you, thank you very much for doing the